Good afternoon. Hello on YouTube and Facebook. Hello, TikTok. How are you? I'm Brian Manning. I am a political asylum lawyer. My law firm is called Political Asylum Lawyers, and we help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. We're based in Texas, we're based in Houston, but we have clients all over the country. We can help you no matter where you live. I'm going to answer your questions about asylum in the United States. Before asking your questions, go ahead and say hello. In the comments, say hello. How's it going? Let me know where you're watching from. I love to see where you guys are at, where all of our fans, our followers, our community are joining us from. So say hello. Let me know where you are. Let me know. All right. And then leave your questions. I'm going to answer your questions about getting asylum in the United States. Before I do that, though, a couple words. I want to talk to you about an important topic, which is what's the timeline when you sue USCIS, when you sue the government to force them to give you your asylum interview? After you sue the government, how long is it going to take for you to hear back from them, to get an answer about sort of what the government's position is and what the next steps are going to be? So, yep. Hey, good to see you too. Nice. Yeah, I totally agree. So I wanted to say a couple words about that. Go ahead and leave your questions though, and then I'm going to get to your questions in just a second. But I want to talk about this. So what we're talking about right now is a mandamus lawsuit. This is where you sue the government to force them to take action on your asylum case. You see, the government has a responsibility to act in a reasonable amount of time on any immigration application. When they don't do that, you can sue them. You're asking a federal judge to tell USCIS, hey, you got to do your job. You got to move this case forward, okay? It's an extremely powerful tool. We've been using it a bunch recently at my law firm, and I got to tell you, our clients are absolutely loving it because it works. It's helping them to get their interview and get the decision pretty much right away, quite quickly at least, so they can win their case and get on with their lives and build the future here they have been dreaming of building, with confidence around their future, all right, with certainty about their life in the United States and about their safety, okay? So what's the timeline? So when you initiate this lawsuit, when you file what's called a complaint with the federal court, well, you have to send a copy of that and a couple other documents in this packet. You have to send it to the people that you're suing, like a copy of it, to let them know, hey, we're suing you, all right? This is called a service. Now, once you send this to the defendants, they have 60 days to respond, to go back to the court and tell the judge what the government's position is on the lawsuit. So like the lawyer for the government has to go back and say, okay, judge, we disagree. We're going to fight this. Or what actually happens normally is they call me and they say, oh, Brian, we don't really want to fight this one. This one's not really a priority for us. If your client will just agree, Brian, if they'll just agree to drop the lawsuit against us, then we'll give them their interview and their decision, okay? So it's usually sort of near the end of this 60-day timeline, 60-day deadline to respond, actually. It's usually near the end of it that they call me and they say that, and they issue the asylum interview notice. This is the letter that says, hey, your interview has been scheduled. Come here on X date or X time, okay? So it's usually within 60 days of filing the lawsuit that you actually get the interview notice, okay, which is great news, all right? That almost always happens, all right? Now, it depends on how long you've been waiting, all right? Because as to whether you're actually going to have success with this, or instead, whether the government might say, no, we want to fight this one. We're going to fight this to the end, instead of capitulating, instead of giving in and saying, oh, we don't want to fight. Here you go. Because the thing is, to win this lawsuit, or to get the government to cave in and say, oh, we don't want to fight it, well, you would have to convince the judge that the delay is unreasonable, that you've been waiting, your client's been, the asylum seeker, have been waiting an unreasonable amount of time, okay? And what is unreasonable and what is reasonable is not defined clearly in the laws. It's not really defined clearly anywhere, but really, in our experience, we've been doing this a lot lately. In our experience, anything beyond about 3 years starts to be pretty unreasonable and puts you in a pretty good position to have success with this lawsuit, with this mandamus lawsuit. And by success, I mean getting the government to say, oh, we don't want to fight this. Here you go. Because if they do fight it, if they say, nope, Brian, we're not gonna give in this time, if they decided to fight it, that would take a long time. It would take like a year probably to litigate it, to actually present all the different arguments that have to be made in court and to like play out in court and for the judge to finally make a decision. You might win, the judge might agree and say, this delay is unreasonable. You have to give him the interview. Or you might lose and the judge might say, nope, sorry, it's not unreasonable. And you just got to wait your turn. All right. So, but 60 days is the timeline during which you'll probably, you'll hear something back. Either we don't want to fight, here's your asylum interview notice, or a motion to dismiss is usually what happens first, where the government says, oh, this lawsuit is bogus, they can't sue us. So one of those two things pretty much is going to happen in those 60 days after you file the lawsuit, the Mandamus lawsuit. Okay. It's a super powerful tool. We've been using it a ton to great success. Our clients love it. It's powerful. All right. It works. If you've been waiting more than 3 years, you're probably in a pretty good position. I'd love to talk with you about it and tell you a lot more about how it works concretely, like what the steps are, what we're going to do to give you the best possible chance to get your asylum interview scheduled and to get your decision. Now, a great thing about the Mandamus lawsuit is not only does it get you your interview scheduled, it also keeps the pressure on the government to issue that decision after the interview. Because here's the thing. Sometimes people wait for years to get their interview, then they have the interview, but then guess what? Well, there's a delay of weeks or months or even years before they actually get the decision after the interview. But if you sue them, it keeps pressure on them, because what happens is we don't actually dismiss the lawsuit until our client has their decision in their hand. And so with that lawsuit hanging over them, they got to take action. So it's not until they actually get the decision that we say, okay, yeah, we'll agree to dismiss it now. Okay. We'll pause it before then, but we won't dismiss it until they actually get that decision in their hand. So listen, if you want to talk about this, if you're sick of waiting, if you want to get confidence around your future and certainty about your ability to stay here, to stay safe and stay here and build the life in the United States that you've been dreaming of building, we should talk. You should call us. Actually, the best way to reach out is online. You can schedule a consultation with one of our asylum professionals by going to the website, the web page, winasylum.com. That's WINASYLUM.com. Again, that's winasylum.com. That's where you can schedule a consultation. All right. Fadi on TikTok, Fadi Ornez says, where are you located? Which state, please? Well, we're located in Texas, but we help people all over the country. All right. We've got lots of clients in Texas, of course, but we have a ton in Florida, California, New York, a lot around Chicago, and really everywhere in between those places. So it doesn't matter where you are. We can help you. We can support you no matter where you are. All right. All right. That's what I wanted to say about Mandamus. Let's go to the questions. Hello. How are you doing? Let's see who we got. Let's see what we got. Muzamil Bajwa says, can you apply for asylum after 1 year and 2 months, a year and 2 months after entry? So the question here is whether you can apply for asylum despite that you've been in the United States for more than 1 year. What's at issue here is the 1 year filing deadline, right? There's a rule that says generally you need to apply for asylum during your first year in the United States. If you don't do that, you can't get asylum unless you qualify for an exception to that rule, exception to the 1 year filing deadline. There's two categories of exceptions called extraordinary circumstances and changed circumstances. Now, to be honest, it's a little bit tricky. This is an area of law that's a bit complicated. If you are afraid of going back to your country, but you've been here for more than a year and you haven't yet applied, you should talk with an asylum lawyer to see if it makes sense to apply, to see if you might at least have some chance of winning this argument about the 1 year filing deadline. You can do that by reaching out to us today at winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. Winasylum.com is where you can schedule a consultation with one of our asylum professionals so that we can analyze your situation, tell you what we think, tell you whether we think that we're in a position to help you. And if so, we're going to tell you how. We're going to lay out concretely what those steps are that we're going to take to give you the best possible chance to win your case so you can secure your future in America through asylum. Thanks for the question. All right, let's go. That was Good question over on YouTube. Let's go over to TikTok. We've got Shamaila Imran watching from New York City. Oh, Shumila says that they've been waiting for 9 years for an asylum interview. So what can you do about it, right? The question is, if you've been waiting for many years for your asylum interview with USCIS, what can you do about it? So in this case, the person's been waiting 9 years. Well, my friend, you're in a very, very, very good position to force USCIS to give you your interview through a mandamus lawsuits, where we're suing the federal government in a federal court, asking the judge to tell USCIS they got to do their job. And you've been waiting 9 years. I am extremely confident that you will have success with this lawsuit. I can't guarantee it, but listen, I'm highly, highly, highly confident. As long as you don't mess up the lawsuit, which is kind of tricky. Federal litigation, suing in a federal court is a little bit tricky. As long as you handle that okay and don't mess that up, you're probably going to have success with getting your interview scheduled and getting your decision probably pretty soon. So listen, we should talk about this. I want to talk with you. All right. Go to winasylum.com so that we can talk about how this works in detail, because you're exactly the kind of person we'd love to help. I think, Shumila, I think that we can help you with this. I hope we can talk soon. Go there now. Go to winasylum.com now to schedule that consultation, please. All right. Okay. On YouTube, Max Saad says, how long does the I-485 take from filing the application to get my green card? So thank you for the question. The question is, how long does it take to get your green card based on your asylee status? So remember, you're eligible to actually get that green card 1 year after you have won asylum, okay? You can apply for it. You can apply using Form I-485 as soon as you win asylum, actually. You can do it the next day. But they can't, USCIS cannot actually grant it. They can't approve it until you've been in the United States for 1 year after having won asylum. So from the time that you apply until the time you get that green card approval, how long is that going to be? Well, last I checked a few weeks ago or so, the average processing time was like 18 months, which is 1.5 years. So it's not fast, unfortunately. All right. Which is all the more incentive to go ahead and file as soon as possible after winning asylum, to go ahead and get your spot in the queue, get in line. Okay. All right. Thanks for the question. Prestige Architectural says, hi, hello, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for being here with us. All right. We already answered that. Ana Hernandez says, hope you're doing great. Thank you, Ana. I'm doing well. Ana, I don't know if you're a Spanish speaker, but if you are, we've got a Asylum YouTube channel in Spanish on YouTube called Asilo Aprobado. Okay. Asilo Aprobado is our YouTube Spanish language channel. All right. On TikTok, we've got Pressy K says, hello, I'm in Indianapolis. Good to see you in Indianapolis with us. Alavita says, hi, Sir Brian. Good afternoon. Hello. Hello. Thank you for being with us. You're just answering my question, says Shumila. Will family reunification cases be affected by the election? I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's not really my area. I don't think it's going to affect asylum, the ability for someone who's won asylum to bring their family here based on their own asylum status. I don't think that a Trump victory would affect that. But other kinds of like actual family-based immigration cases, I don't know. We'll see. Bobby Go says the majority of those requesting asylum do not get asylum. That's true. The approval rates are well under 50%. LJ Alphon says, can I push my master hearing, sir? So good question. So the question is, can you speed up your master calendar hearing in immigration court so it'll happen sooner? Well, so remember, there's usually two hearings, right? Two kinds of hearings. There's a master calendar hearing, which is kind of the preliminary hearing, which is sort of administrative in nature. It's not the one where you're actually fighting your case and explaining your case. And then there's the second hearing, which is called the individual hearing. And that's the one where, yeah, you're actually fighting your case. Now, talking about the first one, the preliminary master calendar hearing, what can you do if you want to speed things along? Well, if it's already been scheduled, yeah, you can ask that it be expedited, to be moved up. If you've got some kind of urgent humanitarian concern, some kind of compelling reason, like a medical issue or some really important reason why it needs to happen sooner. But the judges don't often approve those kinds of requests. What you can do, though, is just can't get it canceled altogether and skip it and skip straight to the individual hearing. This is done by doing on paper what you would normally do in person on the day of a master calendar hearing, which is basically acknowledging to the judge that you understand what your rights are, and then pleading, basically telling the judge whether you agree with what the government is saying about you in the notice to appear, the document they issue that says, hey, we think this person is eligible to be deported. So a lawyer can help you do this. This is what usually I recommend this for our clients, that we try to skip the master calendar hearing by doing what are called written pleadings, by doing on paper what we would normally do in person on the day of the master calendar hearing. So we submit these written pleadings, and then we also submit a motion that says, hey, judge, we're already doing all this stuff on paper. We've done it. So there's no need to have the hearing in person or to have the hearing at all. Could you please just cancel it and go ahead and schedule the main hearing, the individual hearing? And they pretty much always say yes. So if you have an asylum lawyer, they can help you with this. Thanks for the question. All right. On YouTube, Anna Hernandez says, quick question. I'd like to add my husband to my asylum case so he can get an EAD. How do I do that? Good question. So the question is, how do you add your spouse to your asylum case as a dependent? People often want to do this for really two reasons. One, so their spouse can get a work permit, because once a person is included as a dependent in a pending asylum case, they can get a work permit. As long as that asylum case has been pending for at least 150 days, then the dependent can apply for the work permit. To be clear, the dependent does not have to wait 150 days after being added to the case. It's whether the case has been pending in general overall for at least 150 days. Now, the other reason is so they can get asylee status when the principal applicant wins asylum. All right. So how do you add your spouse? They have to be in the United States. Okay. You can't add them if they're abroad. They have to be here in the United States. And then if they are, then basically you amend your asylum application by like doing a new one, basically, where you check the box and says, oh, actually, I do want them to be included as a dependent. You have to also provide proof of your marriage, like a marriage certificate. And you should write a cover letter that says, I want my spouse to be included as a dependent in my case. Please add them to my case as a dependent. And you send this to the asylum office or to the immigration court, and you follow up with them until they tell you, yes, they've been added. Once you get confirmation that the person has been added, if the case has been pending 150 days, then your spouse can immediately at that point go ahead and apply for their EAD, for their work permit. Okay? Thanks for the question. Sarah says on YouTube, is it possible to get a real ID for federal purposes for traveling while an asylum case is pending? So the question is, can you get an identification document while your asylum case is pending that will allow you to travel, like to go through airports while your asylum case is pending? And the answer is, yeah, your work permit card is a real ID compliant identification that you can use for this purpose. So after you apply for asylum, 150 days after you apply, you're eligible to apply for your work permit. And when you get that card, that is a real ID. Basically, what we're talking about here is the government is changing the rules about the kind of identification you need to show to be able to go through security at airports to get through the TSA checkpoints at the airport. And so, yeah, your work permit that you get based on your pending asylum case will serve this function. All right. All right. So Musa on YouTube says, Musa Kona says, hi, please, I was in detention in Florence, Arizona, being released almost 3 months. Now, how can I apply for asylum? Thanks for asking. The question is, how can you apply for asylum after being released from immigration detention? Well, the first step is to determine where you need to apply. Most people who come to the border without a visa and are detained in immigration detention, most of them are going to be applying with the immigration court. You're eventually almost certainly going to end up with the court. It's just that sometimes, due to bureaucratic delays, you have to apply with USCIS instead of the court. Here's what I mean. Here's how it works. The immigration agents who detained you are supposed to send your case file to the immigration court. Once they do that, the court enters your data into the system, and when they do that, you can apply with the court. If you call the court or you look at their online system you use your A number to check your case status, if it says no case found for this A number, if you call, they're like, no, we don't have anything for you here. That means that the immigration agents who detained you simply have not mailed over your case file yet. Okay. It doesn't mean anything good or bad for your case. It just means they're overwhelmed and they just haven't gotten around to it yet. If you want to apply for asylum and your data is not showing up with the immigration court system yet, then you have to apply with USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. They'll accept your application, but then they'll send it over to the immigration court, and the immigration court will accept it, and that will sort of start your process in immigration court. So you got to determine where you need to apply first. Then you fill out the asylum application form, Form I-589. And that is found on the USCIS website. And you fill that out, and you really don't have to submit other stuff at this stage. USCIS likes you to also submit a identification, like a scan of your passport page. With the immigration court, you really don't have to submit anything else, unless you have dependents, family members that you want to include in your case, wife or spouse or children. You need to include marriage certificate or birth certificates for those people to be included in your case. And you send that in. And then later you can deal with everything else, with the evidence and the country conditions information, hopefully a legal brief, hopefully you'll hire an asylum lawyer. But we can talk about this in detail if you want to give us a call or you want to go online and schedule a consultation with us. The best way to do that is go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com, winasylum.com. That's where you can schedule a free consultation with one of our asylum professionals. So we used to charge for consultations. It was about $200, but right now, in the moment that we're doing this asylum question and answer show, it's free. All right. We're offering this consultation for free with one of our asylum professionals who will analyze your situation, tell you what we think, tell you whether we think we can help you, and if so, how. We're going to tell you concretely what our asylum action plan is for your case to give you the best possible chance to win so that you can secure your future in America through asylum. All right, let's go to TikTok. Can I go back home after I get my green card by adjustment of status? By Get NASA says, Get You NASA. The question is, after you get asylum, then you go on to get your green card, your permanent residency. At that stage, once you've got your green card, is it okay to go back to your home country, to the country from which you claimed asylum? The answer is no, you shouldn't do that. When you come back to the United States after having visited your home country, you're going to get a lot of questions at the airport about why, from immigration officials, U.S. officials, about why you went back to your country. Because the idea here is like, look, you told the U.S. government you were afraid to go back to your country, that you needed protection, you needed asylum here. Yet here you are going back. So something's up. You probably lied to the U.S. government originally when you said you were afraid, because it looks like you're not afraid. And so they'll try to take away your asylum status. They will put you, they will have a process where they'll ask you questions in a very formal setting, and they'll try to take it away, and they almost always do. It's almost impossible to avoid having your asylum status stripped once they start that process against you. And then you'll be in deportation proceedings, and you can get deported. So it changes. Most immigration lawyers think it's okay to go back to your country once you get U.S. citizenship, but not before that, not when you're just a green card holder. Okay. All right. Thanks for the question. I know that's tough. I know people want to go home, they want to go back, but you really shouldn't. Even if things have changed such that it makes sense in the sense that, whatever you were worried about, whatever the problem was, is no longer an issue. You still shouldn't do it, because there's still a very good chance that you will get your asylum status stripped and get deported. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So Sarah, interesting on YouTube, Sarah says, two questions. Does USCIS, are they able to go further than public content to check social media? Like, can they see like your private social media stuff? And then she says, I mean, will they have access to private stuff? Do my political comments against my previous government, will that affect my asylum case? Thanks for the question. So we'll do it in two parts. So the question is, can the US government see your social media stuff that's not set to public? Like, for example, if you chat about something or talk about something in a private group that's not set to the public, is the US government going to know about that? Is USCIS going to be able to find that or see that? The answer is probably not. I don't think so. I mean, I used to be an asylum officer with the government, and at least at that time, no, USCIS was not able to do that. As far as I know, if they were, then that was a tightly kept secret, and asylum officers didn't know about it. Public stuff, yeah, they sometimes do check people's public social media content. So, but in terms of like chats between you and people on social media, like DMs or stuff that you say in a private group, I'm pretty confident that no, they will not see that stuff. All right. Thanks for asking. So there was another question, right? So the question is, can things that you say on social media hurt or help your asylum case? And the answer is, well, yeah, it could do either one. It can have an impact if you say these things in public forums, like on Facebook, if you post on your wall publicly, right, or anywhere else, and it's public. It could hurt or help your case. It just depends on what you say, right? If you're lying about something and you say something on social media that makes clear that you're lying, well, that's obviously bad. That's not good. You don't want to commit immigration fraud, and you might get caught. But if you, let's say, criticize your government, and that's part of your case, is you're saying, like, look, I criticize my government. That puts me at risk. I even did it online on social media where they can see it. So I'm really at risk because they could see that and punish me for it. And then you can, as evidence, you can print out screenshots of the posts that you've made that are critical of your government. Then, yeah, that can be evidence that can actually help your case. Okay. Thanks for the question. All right. On YouTube, Adaize, sorry for the mispronunciation, says, I haven't gotten a decision after 2 years after your asylum interview. So the question is, what can you do if you've been waiting an eternity after your asylum interview to get your decision? So, sometimes people wait a very long time to get their interview, right? Months, maybe even years. But then after the interview, sometimes people have to wait months or even years. Like in this case, the person is waiting 2 years since they had their interview. They still have not got a decision. Well, you can probably sue the government successfully in a mandamus lawsuit. Usually when I talk about this very powerful tool, I'm talking about it in the context of suing to get your asylum interview scheduled. But guess what? It also works to force the government to give you your decision after your asylum interview. It all depends on how long your case has been pending in total, not the time between the interview and now, but rather the time between your application and now. If you applied for asylum, let's say probably at least 3 years ago, 3 years or more, then you're probably in a pretty good position to have success with this lawsuit in forcing the government to give you your decision. We've helped clients do this. We love using this very powerful tool, the mandamus lawsuit, to get our clients their decision or to get them their interview so they can win asylum and move on with their life. I'd love to talk with you about this. Go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. Winasylum.com is where you can schedule a free consultation with one of our asylum professionals so we can see what's going on, tell you whether we think we can help you, and if so, explain exactly how we propose to do just that. Thanks for asking. All right, back to TikTok. Okay, so JBAH says on TikTok, when you file for the work permit, how long will it take to get it after the 160 days? So it's actually 180. You can file it 150 days, but they can't actually issue it until you reach the 180-day mark. Okay, so but the question is, how long does it take to get your green card? Actually, no, that's not the question. The question is, how long does it take to get your work permit after you applied for it? We're talking about a work permit based on your pending asylum case. Well, for the first time that you do this, the first time that you apply for a work permit based on your pending asylum case, it's fast. Usually it's like 1 month, maybe 2 months that it takes USCIS to approve your work permit application and actually send you your card in the mail. It's fast, usually 1 or 2 months, okay? However, when it comes time to renew your work permit, which will be 5 years from now, 5 years after you got the first one, then it'll probably take a very long time. Well, who knows 5 years from now what it will be like, but in general, in recent years, to renew an asylum pending based work permit, the wait from the time that you apply to the time they actually make a decision on it and give you your new work permit has been it's been like 2 years or something. It's something ridiculous like that. It's a super long time. So that's the bad news. The good news is for first time work permit seekers based on asylum or pending asylum case, it's very fast. Thanks for asking. Okay. Del Galuz says, can you guys do something to get the decision from USCIS immediately after the asylum interview? Thanks for asking. So the question is there anything that you can do to get your decision immediately after you have your interview, your asylum interview with USCIS? No, you're never going to get your interview immediately after your decision. You're never going to get your decision immediately after the interview. The officer doesn't make the decision on the day of the interview. They might have their mind made up, but they have to do some formal stuff. Like they have to do some paperwork to like justify their decision, explain it, write out a bunch of stuff that their supervisor then has to review and approve. And then other personnel in the office have to do some administrative work on it as well, such that like there's no way that you will get the decision the same day of the interview or the next day. It's going to take some time. The quickest that you can really hope for is 2 weeks. Okay, for people that have an asylum interview and the people that live close to the asylum office, usually actually, they're asked to come back in 2 weeks, 2 weeks after their interview to actually pick up the letter in person at the asylum office. And that's really the best you can hope for. If you live farther away, or in some cases, even if you live close, for whatever reason, for various reasons, they'll just tell you, sorry, you can't come get it. We're gonna mail it to you. And that may take a long time. It may be as little as about 2 weeks, but it's very often several weeks, maybe months, maybe even years. Okay, so that's how it works. All right. All right. Oh, interesting question. Lois Banks says, I applied for asylum in Germany and got a rejection. Can I apply in the USA? Good question. So the question is, if you apply for asylum in another country before coming to the United States, but you get rejected there, will that affect your ability to get asylum here in the United States? And the answer is no, it won't. If you did get asylum in that third country, well, that could affect your ability to get asylum here. You'd probably be barred under what's called the firm resettlement rule. But if you applied and got rejected, then no, that doesn't create some kind of bar for you to get asylum here. Also, I don't think it necessarily creates in the mind of the officer some idea that, oh, well, someone else already reviewed this case and rejected them, so therefore I should do the same thing. Or, it's probably not a good case because they already got rejected by another country. I don't think that's really a thing. I think that, they'll probably take a fairly objective look at your case, despite what some other country said about it. So the fact that you have applied for asylum elsewhere and didn't have success should not keep you from applying for asylum in the United States. And I don't think it will negatively impact your asylum case here in the United States. Thanks for asking. Okay. Lockwinder, thank you. Very kind of you. Lockwinder seeing on YouTube says, Hey guys, hi guys, close your eyes and trust him. He's the best attorney. I have personal experience. He's going to work the best on your case. The way he explained your case, the way he explained your case, it's genius. Thank you, Lockwinder, for the very kind words. You can probably gather by why he would say this based on the fact that Lockwinder says that he has personal experience. So yeah, he would know. Thank you, Lockwinder, for the kind words. I appreciate it. Truly a pleasure. All right. Oh, this is a good question. On YouTube, we got a question that says, or do asylum officers have psychology training on how to carry an interview with traumatized people? Good question. So the question is, do asylum officers get any kind of training on how to deal with someone in the interview who's been traumatized, right, with victims of trauma? A tiny bit. Like you get in the sort of initial training that you get when you become an asylum officer, there's a few lessons. Like there's some reading that you do about how to deal with people who've been traumatized. And there's a lesson or two about it at the training that they do. And then during your career as an asylum officer, there will probably be a few more trainings every once in a while about this issue. So there is some, like they recognize that it's a thing that needs attention. But, to be clear, it's just, it's a few hours worth of training. It's not like they're actually getting, a whole lot of great training. To be fair, I'll say that USCIS, in my opinion, does a good job with training. I criticize USCIS all the time. I think it's a terrible place to work for most people, and it's a poorly run agency. It's bad in very many ways. But one thing I think they do well is training, actually. And this is an area where, yeah, I remember getting pretty good training. It's just not a whole lot, unfortunately, about how to handle traumatized people, learning how that affects someone's ability to remember things and to articulate things, and like learning about how to handle this in an interview. There is some training, but it's not adequate, unfortunately. So that means that you got to be ready to talk about your case, and that can be really hard if for many people, they're talking about very traumatic incidents, right? They're talking about things that are very hard for them. And when you bring it up, when you have to think about it and talk about it, it can re-traumatize you. And that's very difficult. And so some people, they don't want to do that, but you have to be honest, you just have to talk about it to win asylum. You can't, you're not going to win your case if you're like, sorry, I just, I can't talk about this. You won't win, unfortunately. So it's, hopefully you can talk with a therapist and with people, mental health professionals that can help you get prepared to do this. But you'll need to do it at least this one last time to win asylum. Marion 38 says, I need your number, please. The best way really to contact us is go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com, winasylum.com. That's the best way to schedule a consultation with us. If you want to call us, the number is 713-909-0401. Again, 713-909-0401. Thanks for asking. The question on TikTok, there's a question about, can I apply for asylum by mail and file the EAD online through USCIS? The question is, can you apply for your work permit based on your pending asylum case online, despite that you applied for asylum by mail, not online? Yes, you can. You can apply for your work permit online no matter what, whether you applied for asylum online or whether you applied with physical paper by mail. Doesn't matter. In either case, you can still apply for that work permit by mail. Now, you can still apply for the work permit online. You can also do it by mail, but don't do that. Do it online. And apply for asylum online. If you haven't yet applied for asylum, but you're thinking about applying, if you're in a category of people who are eligible to apply online rather than with paper by mail, you should apply online with USCIS. It's better. It's faster. It's just, believe me, it's better. Apply online for asylum rather than by mail, unless you can't. There's certain circumstances under which a person, under the USCIS rules, simply can't apply online. In those cases, yeah, you got to do it on paper. You have no choice. But if you can, do it online. Thanks. Oh, good question. I have a master calendar hearing in December. Can I make an individual hearing on that date? Good question. So the question is, if you've got a master calendar hearing scheduled in immigration court, can you just switch that to make it an individual hearing instead of doing a master calendar? Just basically skip it, go right to the individual hearing, but have your individual hearing on that date for which your master calendar hearing was scheduled. I don't think so. I've never heard of this. No, actually, no. I can say with pretty high confidence that that will not happen, because even if you skip your master calendar hearing, if you get the judge to agree that we don't need to have the master calendar hearing because you did the written pleadings, you did everything ahead of time on paper that you would normally do in person on the day of a master calendar hearing. If you do all that and then you make a motion that says, Judge, we already did everything, no need to have a master calendar hearing, could you please cancel it and schedule the individual hearing? Even if they say okay and they grant that motion, which they probably will if you do those things, then they're not going to just make the date that you have already scheduled. They're not going to make that an individual hearing date, because that date on the judge's calendar is already full of master calendar hearings. Like, you and 50 other people are having master calendar hearings that day. And, your time, the time of that day that's, allotted to you is like 10 minutes. So that's for a master calendar hearing. For an individual hearing, they're going to clear off at least 2 hours, usually 3. So it just wouldn't fit. Like, they can't convert a master calendar hearing slot into an individual hearing slot. So it's going to be another date. It could be, technically it could be the same day, but it would have to be either the morning or afternoon, whichever is the opposite of your master calendar hearing. But almost certainly it's going to be an entirely different date. It could be sooner. It could be later. Could be much sooner. It could be much later. There's no way to predict this, unfortunately. All right. Thanks for asking. All right. On YouTube, we've got a question that says, I came to the U.S. for a year as a J1, but when I went back to my country, Jordan, I was threatened with being killed for being a bisexual. I'm coming back to Washington, D.C. as a J1 in July. What can I do? Thanks for asking. I'm sorry to hear about this very difficult position that you're in. The question is, can you still apply for asylum in the United States if you come here after having previously been in the United States and then gone back to your country? Like, when you come back to the United States, are you going to be able to get asylum? And the question is, the answer is, yeah, the fact that someone left their country and then returned back to that country can impact your ability to get asylum, because it can make the officer say, well, listen, you were in your country and you got out, right? You came to the United States, or you went to some other country. If you're so afraid of being harmed in your country, then why did you go back? That shows me that you must not really be afraid. That's the line of thinking that comes up pretty often. But, if you might have a reasonable explanation for this, like, someone in your case, it may be the case that, you were never threatened or harmed in the past in your country, but then, you left your country, and then when you went back to your country, then the harm or, the threats occurred such that you began to feel in danger. Well, that's perfectly reasonable. Maybe in the past when you came to the United States previously, you didn't think you needed asylum because nothing had happened, or at least you thought it would be okay. But then something changed, and the situation sort of escalated when you went back to your country, such that it became clear, like, look, I need asylum, I need protection, I need to flee. Then that should be fine. And this happens all the time. There are scenarios pretty much exactly like what I just described that make it reasonable that you would, not have sought asylum previously in the United States, but you need it now after having left the U.S., gone to your country, and then come back to the United States. Okay. Thanks for asking. All right. Oh, good question. On YouTube, we've got lots of good questions today. Alicia says, hi, Brian, what kind of preparation does the asylum officer do before the interview, and how long does the preparation usually take? Good question. So the question is, what kind of preparation does the asylum officer do before your asylum interview at the USCIS asylum office? So they usually, depends on the office, but they're going to get your case file, right, with all of your materials at some point before the interview. In some offices, it's like 2 weeks before, and some it's just a few days before, or maybe sometimes the day of. And sometimes it's like the day of, the morning of, for various reasons. But they're going to look through it. They're at least going to review your asylum application. And if you submitted a declaration, like a written statement, they're going to review that as well. If it's not too long, if it's super long and like not very focused and not very well done, they might just kind of skim that and not really pay close attention to it. If you submitted evidence, they're probably going to look at that at least in some detail. But listen, asylum officers are super, super busy. Okay. The workload is pretty ridiculous. They're overworked. It's a very stressful, hard job to do. They're not going to spend like 10 hours looking, carefully scrutinizing everything and looking at your case file. They're going to review your asylum application, your declaration, and at least some of the evidence. Usually I would say officers probably dedicate or able to allocate maybe an hour to each case before they interview it. If they have, in cases where they have more time, some of them will be thoughtful enough to actually look at it carefully and to, take that sort of more seriously. But they don't always do that. And they're not always able to do that. So you never know. As the asylum applicant, you will have no clue as to whether the officer has really had a chance and has really looked at your materials closely or not. Okay. You cannot assume that they have. You cannot think, oh, I don't need to talk about this because it was in my materials, my written materials. No. If you want the officer to know it, you need to say it at your asylum interview. Okay. Also, don't ever tell the officer, oh, like I said in my statement, or the details about that, or you can look at my declaration for that. No. You got to pretend that your written materials don't exist. Okay. You have to tell them at the interview everything you want them to know. Okay. All right. All right. So on YouTube, we got Barekia Mayanikini. Sorry for the mispronunciations. I've been on asylum pending this September. It'll be 8 years of September. If I expedite, how long will it take to get the interview? Well, there's two different issues here. There's two different things. There's expediting your interview, but then there's also getting it by suing the government. Okay, so the question is, how long is it going to take to get your asylum interview? If you've been waiting for many years and you seek to expedite it, how long is it going to take? Well, listen, when we use the word expedite, we use that usually in the context of asking the government to speed up your case because of urgent humanitarian concerns, like a medical condition that you or a family member has that justifies moving you up in the line, in the queue. Those don't usually work. Okay. Usually the government says no. But what you can do if you've been waiting for many years for your asylum interview is sue the government. And I don't consider this expediting the case. It's kind of a different thing. It's suing the government in a mandamus lawsuit. So in a mandamus lawsuit, which, yes, those do work extremely well. Our clients would tell you that they love this and it works really well. That's fast, okay? I would say on average, our clients over the last year or so, we've seen them get an interview on average, maybe 3.5 or 4 months after we file the lawsuit is probably on average. Sometimes it's been longer, sometimes it's been faster. In some cases, it's literally been a couple of weeks after we filed the lawsuit that our client has had their asylum interview and then gotten their decision a week or two after that. So if you sue, it can go very fast. We should talk. Go to winasylum.com, 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 and schedule a consultation, a free consultation, so that we can talk with you about your situation and tell you whether we think we can help you to secure your future in America through asylum. Okay. I want to talk with you. Anna says, thank you very much for answering. I appreciate it. So yeah, here's yet another person waiting 8 years. Sagar says, Nepal pending asylum for almost 8 years, no progress. I tried expediting the case. See, that's what I was just talking about when I said if you try to expedite, like the humanitarian expedite, it doesn't work. It usually doesn't work. It didn't work for Sagar. and they say, can I go through a different route like TPS or EB3? Well, let me answer it like this. The question is, can you apply for another kind of status other than asylum while your asylum case is pending? And the answer is, having a pending asylum case does not by itself prohibit you from getting some other kind of status, like based on marriage to a U.S. citizen, or like employment-based status or status based on investment. The mere fact that you've got an asylum application pending doesn't affect that stuff. However, it's a bit tricky because of the way that the rules work. The fact that you've been here for a while, depending on, there's interplay between, like, when you applied for asylum, did you apply before you lost status, before your old status expired? And there's a couple other things that come into play that make this a little bit complicated. And so I can't answer with a simple yes or no as to, like, will it work? But what I can tell you is that if you've been waiting for multiple years, in this case, you said 8 years for your asylum interview, you're in a very good position to force the government to give you your asylum interview by suing them with a mandamus lawsuit. We've been doing this a ton recently with great, great success. Our clients are loving this because it works. All right. We should talk about it. Go to winasylum.com, 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 so we can talk in detail about whether this might be a good fit for you. All right. All right. Good question. So, hi, Brian. I'm a citizen of Egypt and I hold a Lebanese residency permit. I was persecuted in Egypt and fled directly to the U.S. without passing through Lebanon. Will I be subject to the asylum bar? Good question, says from Kirelos Tadros. Thank you. The question is, will you be barred from getting asylum, prohibited from getting it under what's called the firm resettlement bar if you had permanent residency in a third country, but you didn't go to that country after fleeing your own country? So in this case, the person's a citizen of Egypt and they had a permanent residency in Lebanon, but they were in Egypt and persecuted there, and they went straight from Egypt to the United States and did not pass through Lebanon on the way. They didn't go to Lebanon after fleeing Egypt. They went from Egypt to the United States. The good news is, in this case, you should not be barred by the firm resettlement bar, because that rule says that you're only prohibited from getting asylum if you actually had permanent residence or technically an offer to get it, and were physically present in that country, that third country, while you had that permanent residency after having fled your country. So if you went straight from your own country to the U.S. and did not set foot in the country where you have permanent residence after fleeing your country, but instead came straight to the United States, then you should be okay. You will not be barred by the firm resettlement bar. So that's good news for you. All right. Thank you. Nice. All right. Wrapping it up there. That is it. Thank you very much for joining me again. I'm Brian Manning. My law firm is called Political Asylum Lawyers, and we help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Okay. If you want to talk with us about whether we might be able to help you in your asylum case, go to winasylum.com, 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 so we can analyze your situation, understand what's going on, and give you our best analysis as to whether we think we are in a position to help you secure your future in America through asylum. I want to talk with you, so schedule that consultation now. Don't wait. We're done here, so go to winasylum.com, schedule it now so we can get started in understanding your situation and see if we can help you. All right. That's it. Until next time, thanks for being on this asylum question and answer show with us. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye, guys. All right. Bye. You too on TikTok. See you guys. YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Have a good night. And that's it, guys. All right. Talk to you later. Bye. Oh, thank you. Yep. I know.